My name's Carl Fender. I'm a director of Fender Architects. We're a firm that is based in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. We started about 25 years ago in practice. The first projects were actually residential projects that were initiated in a development sense by our partner Nonda Katsoulides. We had the ability to really design those from our own basic design platforms. So we put a lot of thought into residential. It was a new concept in the city, and that's where our projects were. And we were able to bring a level of design to that, which we think gave us a reputation and certainly worked in the marketplace. And I think that great design outcomes has become synonymous with the name of our practice. The building we're sitting in, which is Eureka Tower, that became, at the time, the tallest building in the Southern Hemisphere, the tallest floor plate in Australia, and certainly when it was marketed or released in the year 2000, way ahead of its time. Took everyone by surprise and really captured imagination, so it was very successful. Over 600 apartments in one go, in a high-rise building. It was unheard of, but it's certainly become one of the real landmarks in Melbourne. It's interesting how the practice was really known for residential, and whether that was a curse or a blessing, I think it was a great blessing actually, but it's easy to get typecast. And what's happened with us recently, or let's say in the recent years, has been that reputation for design has carried us into other areas. Commercial office buildings, retail, hotels for instance, aged care. The reach of the practice has broadened enormously. And this puts us in a great place going forward. The idea that you cover a number of typologies means that you're always there for the different waves of demand that hit an economy. Our next really large project was Merdeka 118. Now this is a building that will be the second tallest building when it's finished early next year. Merdeka Tower is probably a once-in-a-lifetime project. It happens to be on one of the most important sites in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, the place where independence was proclaimed by the then Prime Minister in 1957. And it is marked by a heritage stadium, which is an open stadium, and it was on that field that the Prime Minister raised his finger and said, we will be independent. It's an amazing, amazing site, and to be tasked with the challenge of putting a major, major building on that site, it was quite a challenge and quite a responsibility and also a huge honour. So here we have this beautiful stadium. It's been remodelled just like it was in 1957. It's low scale. And we're asked to put this huge tower there. And I suppose anybody involved with the project could be accused of overriding the importance of that stadium and that place. But in fact, the Merdeka Tower is quite the contrary to that. It is a marker. It's a marker of a special place, and it's a marker that can be seen from anywhere in Kuala Lumpur. And so the design of that building was very, very important indeed. On the one hand, it had to talk about the future. I mean, future technology, future construction technology, future workplace, future everything. But on the other hand, it was invested in a really important historical site in KL. And it didn't want to say, we are more important than this site. It needed to say, this is the marker for this incredibly important site, and this marker is a natural occurrence on this site. Our building is formed by a lot of triangular pieces that go together to make the crystalline form, and those triangular pieces are a subtle reference to the many different cultures, religions and types of society that make up Malaysia. It's a way of reconciling the modern issues with the traditional issues and the history and the makeup of a city like Kuala Lumpur. With the tower came retail, residential, and they are very appropriate additional uses to the tower itself, which is basically a commercial tower with a hotel, a restaurant and an incredible sky lobby. So blended all together, you've got a really rich mixed-use development. But it also gave something to Stadium Merdeka. Prior to this development, Stadium Merdeka had a gravel bike car park as its front entry. We have got the most beautiful park underway, which cascades from the tower right down in front of the Merdeka Stadium. The gardens were designed by Sasaki out of Boston, a very, very wonderful landscape architecture firm. And they treated that as a series of cascading water, which by the time they get to the front of Merdeka become like a vapour, so that on a normal day the kids can come and play in a mist, which is beautiful in that climate. On a day where there is a performance in the stadium, the mist can turn off and we have a plaza. So there's a place of assembly in front of the Merdeka Stadium. So this garden, apart from having luxuriant, shady gardens, has also got this body of water that cascades and does various beautiful transformations and gives back to Stadium Merdeka. Fender Katsalides has been committed to ArchiCAD since we did Eureka Tower, and that was in the year 2000. I think that this is probably the first huge project that was done on a BIM process and on an ArchiCAD platform. This is a complicated building. It's 300 metres tall, but you know, the building sways about 600 about the axis. It's got all of those characteristics of a tall building and the complexity of structuring that you come across with towers like this. And the use of ArchiCAD or a 3D virtual model was just fantastic. It meant that we could all talk to each other in the studio in a very accurate, coherent way, that the virtual model we created was rich with information that could flow out of it in the form of drawings or shared models with consultants, contractors, etc. And we were pretty much excited about using ArchiCAD in those days, but after we did this building, we were totally committed. And we've been part of the journey with ArchiCAD for all of those years, for every new edition of ArchiCAD that's come along. And maybe we were on edition 8 or something like that. And so you can see it was quite a long time ago, but it's been a tremendous journey and it's absolutely part of our DNA. It was just proven to us how dramatically important it is to us when we did Merdeka 118. Now we're talking about a building that's twice as tall as Eureka, where we first used that product back in the year 2000. But Merdeka is even more technologically demanding. It's got 3 outrigger zones. That's where, you know, major pieces of steel come into the concrete core and anchor and help support the building. It's got complex shapes. The curtain wall is crystalline, it moves, it has to meet the concrete accurately. The concrete has to work, in a sense, coherently with the core and the steel structures. These are incredibly complex technologies, and to have a very rich program like ArchiCAD at our service to help design these, to help envisage how technical, complicated junctions come together, to tell us how materiality interfaces with structure, how curtain walls tie back to slabs. This is mind-boggling stuff. And even in the early stages, in the design stages, it's a complicated building, complicated shape. The crystalline form comes down into a podium horizontally. You can imagine these things conceptually. To have an ArchiCAD program means you can visualize it, you can try it, you can build it virtually, and you can shape it virtually. You can make design decisions that would be very difficult simply by drawing. As much as I love drawing, I love even more taking my drawing, seeing it modelled, and sitting with a group of people that can then take that drawing and test it in a number of different ways, in many different ways, in countless ways. So it's very much a part of the design process, it's part of the technological process, it's part of the sharing of information, it's part of ensuring that there's no clashes between structure and services, etc. The collaboration that's required between all parties involved is paramount. Architecture, engineering, construction, they should be partners in the process, collaborators. The best solutions come out of understanding each other's needs, problems and requirements. And so I think going forward, the levels of collaboration, and not just on major buildings, but on all buildings, has to be taken notice of. It's a very, very critical part of making a great environment for this planet going forward. The future of the practice, as I said, is based on what we produce, the skill, the care, and the end result. So anything that we can get our hands on that helps us to produce that, helps us on our journey, is more than welcomed. And I think that technologies such as Graphisoft's ArchiCAD is it's a critical part of our future. We look forward to every improvement, and that's another thing that we really like about ArchiCAD, is that every version gets better, more powerful, and suits us. It makes our job even more clear, easier in a way. Perhaps not easier, but it makes every step of the way more accurate and enables us to be more involved in how we conceptualize. And it ensures an accuracy during the construction process. And these are very critical areas of concern for us. So yeah, we're totally reliant and looking forward to improvements all the time in the sort of technology that we use in our computers. We've built a practice at Fender that's got a tremendous future ahead of it. We have a wonderful mentoring environment in the practice, and the practice is here to stay. But it's here to also keep an incredibly high level of public amenity, placemaking, placing people first, making environments that prosper in cities or help cities prosper. And we're fortunate enough to be involved in projects of a scale which allow us to do that. It's a huge responsibility, and it's one that we take very seriously, and it's one that we enjoy. To be able to contribute to city life by even tall buildings like Eureka, by making the public realm compelling, interesting, places for art, places for gathering, places for interacting, that's the joy of what we do. And I think that that's what we see our responsibility is and what we want to keep doing going forward. Really, really making every piece of the city that we touch a better place.